joined by Harry Scherzer, CEO of Future Forex. Harry, I mean, it's very much all eyes on budget. It seems that even equity markets are, well, not playing, or rather waiting for the budget speak to take place tomorrow. Just like to get your take in terms of what will be the key focus for tomorrow's budget speech.
Hi, Tanya. Great to chat to you and your listeners again. It's one of those where I don't have particularly good news for this budget speech because Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana is in a bit of a tight predicament with our deficit at an all-time high and not too many options to reduce that deficit. I mean, the options at play are to either borrow more, which just exacerbates the issue, to raise taxes, which in an election year is unlikely to be the go-to mechanism of the ANC, or to cut expenditure, which is something that we'd love to be done, but would require potentially the privatization of state-owned enterprises, which are draining cash flow. But again, it feels very unlikely that any of those will actively be done, and rather the minister may dance around the issue in order to gain investor confidence, and I'm quite skeptical as to whether that will work.
Yeah, and I mean, dancing around the issue, very much not addressing it. How do you think rating agencies would respond to that? Are the rating agencies looking to the budget speech tomorrow?
Yeah, they absolutely will look to the budget speech. And at present, we are below investment grade. We're in what's so-called junk status. And so not only are we at an all-time high in how much debt we've acquired, but we also have a low enough status that the debt is extremely expensive, not to mention that we're at the top of the interest rate cycle, so interest rates across the board are high. So it really is a dire situation overall, and we need to either increase our ratings so that we can get to investment grade and reduce the cost of the debt, or more pragmatically, we need to actually reduce our debt directly by spending less.
Yeah, we're spending less. Where should expenditure cuts come from?
Yeah, the easy options are, quite cynically, I'll say, corruption is the first place you can look at. I mean, reducing corruption will be less expenditure. But more practically, potentially, if there were to be privatization of SOEs, state-owned enterprises, like Eskom, Transnet, PRASA, these are massive drains on our economy. And like with SAA, where it got partially privatized, if we can do the same with some of these state-owned enterprises, that would be a great place to start, albeit an unlikely one, particularly in an election year.
Now, looking to the privatization of the state-owned entities, I mean, you mentioned Transnet, Eskom, PRASA. How likely, feasible is it that we could see this? And what sort of mechanisms would be put in place to be able to allow for this?
Yeah, so Tanya, I would love to see this personally. I think it would be fantastic for the South African economy. How likely do I think it is? Virtually zero probability, sadly. I really don't see it as anything that will happen in the near term, particularly with an election coming up. We're going to have to wait at least until after the election until a big move like that is made. But ultimately, I think it is the quick win here in trying to reduce our expenditure.
And tax increases, I mean, none of us like hearing this, but we have to evaluate it. If there are to be any tax increases, which taxes?
Yeah, so back to that question of would they do this in an election year? I don't think so, because it's not going to make them particularly popular. But if they were to increase taxes, and now I'm thinking strategically as a member of the ANC, where I would probably look to increase taxes would be corporate taxes, purely because if you look at the voter base of the ANC, it's not a huge proportion that are in corporate or affected by corporate. And so as a result, that would be the set of people in the country who probably would already not be voting ANC. So then by increasing their taxes, you're already disliked by that segment of the economy or that segment of the population. It wouldn't reduce your votes that heavily. So if I'm thinking strategically, potentially corporate tax increases, but remember that they've recently decreased corporate taxes from 28 to 27%. And so it would really be a change of heart from what they were trying to do previously. So my guess overall is that there won't be any movement in taxes because it's an election year.
And what about, I mean, currencies? Are we expecting any changes with regards to exchange controls, for example?
I don't think we're expecting changes with regard to exchange controls, but I do foresee potentially a knock of the rand, unless it's already been priced into the market. I suspect that what's going to happen is with the finance minister dancing around the issue, investors will look right through this and will value the rand less heavily, and effectively it will weaken against the dollar unless the recent drop of the rand last week was potentially due to this, where it hit 19 to the dollar and has now come back to around 18.9 to the dollar. It may be the case that that drop to 19 was because of expectations of the budget speech. So maybe it's already been priced into the market, is the hope.
Hopefully. Hopefully it has. But let's say it hasn't. How low could we go?
Yeah, that's a question that I don't really want to think about. I'd say if the budget speech is really poorly handled and it isn't taken particularly well, we could be seeing as low as 19.5 to the dollar potentially. I don't think we'll see that. I think it will be handled more strategically than that, where by dancing around the issue, there will be some glimmers of hope. So I don't think it will be quite that bad, but there is a chance that the rand could tank after the budget speech.
Okay, well, we'll be paying very close attention. Harry, thank you so much for joining us today. That was Harry Scherzer, CEO of Future Forex. So